Hi everyone, I'm Valerie. I'm here with Linda and we're going to talk about Wheesht. We are continuing our conversation about the Wheesht chapter. And last week we talked about the definition of Wheesht. So it's right on the back of our book and it says it's a Scottish and Northern England dialect: to be quiet, to quieten, to hush, to remain silent. So what did you have any observations this week, Linda?
Yeah, I did make a point a couple times to really listen and not interrupt. Um, and i- it's an old detective tricks. I'm a detective story fan, and the detective will say sometimes that one of the key ways he interviews witnesses is, or just anybody he wants to talk to and get information from, is that he's purposely quiet. And when there's an awkward pause, he chooses not to fill that and let the other person fill that. And I did notice that this week. I tried to apply that principle to let the awkward silences happen and try not to feel awkward about it and just wait and let the other person talk first. And it especially was helpful with my daughter. She's 21 and still lives with us, and she, is right at that very formative age and still shares with me, which is such a wonderful gift. So the more I can listen without judgment, the better. And so I think my knitting friends are really good at that. And we have our knitting to help us to listen and Haud our Wheesht, hold our tongue. It's I've seen it I've seen it bear fruit, I guess. I've seen it work, and it's interesting to listen to other people often.
I've heard that doctors use the same tool,
Okay.
not filling in the pause, because that's when the juicy information comes through. But it's always amazing to me what gets shared. I had a couple experiences this week where people just freely shared information that I would not have thought was like stranger worthy, but here we are.
Right, because you went up to Rhinebeck and were surrounded by thousands of people, right?
Thousands of people, yeah. And sometimes, it's just not something that I would like put out into the world, but um very interesting.
Yeah, I was at the Maryland Five Star. Well, you were up at the yarn event. I was at a horse event with that same daughter. And it really is interesting going to someplace in person and just listening. And I did, when you're watching something online streaming or on television, you miss those little tiny backstories. And sometimes we would hear someone would be just behind us who happened to know the owner of so and so's horse and could tell a little backstory. And they're like, "Oh, you wouldn't believe how he ran yesterday. This is just so much better. I just can't believe it." Or I ran into one of the jump judges. At every single jump on the cross country, there is a couple of judges that make sure there aren't any faults, or um, sometimes they're recording things. And so I met a woman from New Zealand, and she was
Wow.
telling me how excited she was about the horse from New Zealand that ended up winning the whole thing. And just
Oh,
hearing her excitement and letting her talk, I just kept thinking, okay, what question can I ask? Because I want her to keep talking, because she was just a wealth of information. Um, so yeah, I that was fun. Just trying to ask a good question and then just letting the person talk as long as possible. And that was fun.
yeah. A story about Mike Birbiglia, a comedian. meeting President Barack Obama, and like what question does he ask in that moment, like to get to your point, like to get an interesting response that's not boring. I mean, it was funny for me to hear Mike Birbiglia talk about that because I put him in a celebrity bucket. Like he has written books, he's toured, he's a public speaker. Not that I would know him walking down the street, but I certainly know him as a personality. And then to have that window into Mike Birbiglia is preparing to meet President Barack Obama. I mean, it's just really interesting.
Oh, I bet. To get a little tidbit like that from a celebrity or someone you admire. Do you remember what question he asked? I mean,
I
yeah,
think somebody should Google it. Yeah.
I mean, I've often wondered the same thing. What if I ran into some famous person that I admired? What would I say? I mean, I'm sure mostly they just want to be ignored, but I did get to meet a famous ice skater, Dorothy Hamill, um,
Oh my goodness.
because
Wow.
she was skating at the ice rink where my oldest daughter was ice skating. She just chose that rink to skate for a while, and we were all prepped to not ask for her autograph, that she just wanted to come and skate and let this be her home rink for a while. And I did get to have a little conversation with her. Like it turned out that she had a little fluffy white dog like I did, and um, so we talked about our dogs, and it's really beautiful to watch her skate in person. So that was a good experience.
But somehow for me, it's like even more special than a meet and greet. Like just the fact that sort of your everyday lives overlapped a little
Yes.
bit. I
Mhm.
mean, how special.
Yep. Um, there was a little quote in the Wheesht chapter that I came across. I thought I could read.
Great.
Right. Silence is the element in which great things fashion themselves together, that at length they may emerge, fully formed and majestic, into the daylight of life. A quote from Thomas Carlyle. So why not Haud your Wheesht, Kate Davies says, as you turn away from sonic overload to silence. You might find a place in which you are finally capable of facing your own creative ignorance and begin to explore the uncharted territory of what you do not yet know. So there's a concept, my creative ignorance. Maybe somehow that's important to acknowledge in the process. I've never thought of that.
Yeah, I've never heard that phrase before. That is, I've read the chapter, did not, was not on my radar. So creative ignorance.
Oh, she goes on to say, inhabiting a place of silence with intentional, thoughtful reflection, you might finally acknowledge that there are things you need to learn. So I get
Mm,
that, of course. Yes.
yeah,
And so in
like
humility, in that acceptance of learning, will grow creatively, you think?
like knowing what you don't know, kind of. Is it that the flavor? I don't know.
By hauling your weech and saying nothing, you might also begin to reap the countless creative benefits of active, attentive listening. So maybe it takes that intentional effort and that humility of accepting that I don't know everything in order to get me to Haud my Wheesht. Maybe, and especially to actively listen, because actively listening, really paying attention and asking a question to help the person continue to talk or just saying nothing, it does for sure take some humility and patience. So I can see how those are connected.
I'm thinking about how much I knit and crochet on autopilot.
Mm.
And there's something there for me where drawing my attention to what I'm actually doing. Or if I'm learning something new, really paying attention to the technique because I have a tendency to like jump ahead to the third step, but I
Mm.
might be missing things in one and two.
Mm. Mhm.
Really interesting ideas.
Yeah, if someone says something like buttonhole, I think, oh yeah, I know how to make a buttonhole. But then,
Exactly. Of course. How many hundreds buttonholes have you made?
right, but if I actually read the author's description of how to make a buttonhole, wow, it turns out that there are different techniques, and I recently learned one that takes 3 rows rather than 2, and I love it. I love it. So, but you have to be willing to recognize, I had to be willing to recognize that I don't know everything. Go ahead and read what the author, you probably paid for the pattern. Go ahead and read it.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, sometimes there are steps that we know and it's good to acknowledge it so you can go on to what you don't know.
of course. Yep. And that's the cycle of learning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good.
She has one of her exercises at the back is reading an essay by I guess the same author that's kind of the feature person, Evelyn Glennie. Um, I think we talked about her last week.
Yes.
Okay. So she also wrote an essay called What Makes Us Human?
Mm.
And it's good. I pulled it up and read like half of it. Um, and she kind of, in a nutshell, explores several ideas, like compassion and curiosity. Um, and those are really good ideas. And I mean, my dog is a better listener than me. Listening is perhaps not what makes us human, but actively listening, is definitely a human trait. So, and perhaps, the sense of recognizing that I don't know everything, having a sense of curiosity and compassion on the person I'm listening to, all those can help to sharpen that tool of silence.
Yeah. The silence becomes a practice, a deliberate, situation. And like I mean, I keep coming back to like, what do I listen to on autopilot? Or do I put something on for background noise? Or am I really paying attention to what's being offered? And
Mm.
that's digital, TV, radio, interpersonal situation, everything. I'm not,
Yeah. No, no, I think all
yeah.
that's great because we do a lot of mundane tasks and it's nice to have something on in the background to keep us company.
Hmm.
But I think Kate Davies' point here is just to not forget that tool of silence and like you said, make that a practice also. I like that idea.
Yeah. So good. Excellent. Anything else for this week, this chapter?
I'm just gonna try to keep applying that tool and get better at it. So thank you for listening with us today. And I hope that you also enjoy that tool in your toolbox of silence as a way to continue to grow your creativity. Take care. See you next time. Bye bye.